It's spooky season. Today we're going to look at Shirley Jackson's classic haunted house tale, The Haunting of Hill House, and compare it to Mike Flanagan's adaptation. How good of an adaptation was it, and does it really matter? Please join the conversation. Hey everybody, welcome to D3 Reads. It's Eric, and today we're going to do something I've been wanting to do for a while now. Back in May, I posted a video called The Best Movies Based on Books, and I even discussed Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House and Mike Flanagan's adaptation. But since it's spooky season, I wanted to get something off my chest about Flanagan's adaptation of this classic haunted house movie. Now, to be clear, I love them both, but there's so much difference between the adaptation and the book that I really want to get this off my chest. So let's have this conversation. I want to start off with a quick TBR update, and then we'll get right into the comparison of the novel versus the book. And I'm hoping this is a series, actually. So if you like this content, let me know, and let me know what book and movie adaptations that you want to compare, and we'll look at it in a future video. So first, this is what we're reading. It's spooky season, as I say. I am now reading Stephen Graham Jones' The Buffalo Hunter, enjoying it. It's a vampire tale, and I've been jonesing for some good vampire stories to add to my best of vampire list. I'm not going to go into details because I'm just now getting into it, but it does kind of a classic kind of take in that there is a modern descendant of someone who disappeared in, I think, the early 20th century, and they are reading some old letters, and the letters are referring to events that happened back during the American frontier period, and it's just really kind of cool. It's gotten creepy pretty quick. It started off just kind of easing you into the story, and pretty quickly I found myself entranced with the story. So right now, enjoying The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. Hope to have the book finished within the next 2 weeks so I can do a proper book review right before Halloween. The other spooky book I am reading now is Joe Hill's Nosferatu. I actually didn't get to read much of it this last week. Pretty busy, and I wanted to get into The Buffalo Hunter, but what I've read of Nosferatu is thoroughly enjoyable. Great Joe Hill horror, and a good primer for when I get my hands on Joe Hill's King Sorrow, which is coming out here pretty quickly. So that one, as I said, I will not, King Sorrow, though I want to start it, I will not have it read by Halloween, but I'll let you know what my take on it by Halloween, and then do a full book review hopefully sometime in November. So those are the three scary books that I am reading for spooky season, and the only other update I have is on Brandon Sanderson's The Well of Ascension. It is with reluctance I think I am going to have to put this into my DNF pile. I don't say this lightly. I have read 560 pages of an almost 800-page book, and it's just not doing it for me. I mentioned in my last video that considering the thickness of this book, almost 800 pages, I forget how many The Final Empire was, I am just not getting the payoff that a book of this volume should be delivering. I'm just not liking it. I think I'm going to put a video on why I am not enjoying the Mistborn series. I'm not trying to rag on Brandon Sanderson. I'm sure he's a fantastic writer and that he's grown since writing these books, but his characters just don't resonate with me. And I finally kind of flipped out at a certain point, at a certain scene, because I just realized I didn't care about the characters enough to deal with what I felt was tacked on drama. So The Well of Ascension, not digging it, and I've been looking for a good fantasy series to sink my teeth into. So I think what I'm going to do is transition over to the Locke Lamora series once again, and hopefully that will kind of scratch the itch when it comes to a good fantasy series. But The Well of Ascension, DNF for now. Maybe I'll get back to it. If you're a Sanderson fan, let me know. Should I keep going with this, because I'm just not feeling it. So that's it for the TBR. So let's talk The Haunting of Hill House and Shirley Jackson's novel. First, here's the parameters of this discussion. The Haunting of Hill House, the book, is considered by many to be one of the best ghost slash haunted house stories out there. Stephen King is among those folks who have drawn inspiration from The Haunting of Hill House. And I personally I love it. I've listed it in my video last year as one of the best examples of Gothic horror. At the same time, I really enjoy Mike Flanagan's work. I'm a big fan of his, and on its own merits, I love The Haunting of Hill House. Okay, but we're going to talk about The Haunting of Hill House here in just a second. Now, let me give you a real quick warning. There will be no spoilers for the book. I'm going to do a regular kind of spoiler-free review of Shirley Jackson's novel at the beginning of this right now. But when I transition over to talk about Flanagan's work, I'm afraid there will be spoilers in there. So if you haven't seen Flanagan's Netflix adaptation of The Haunting of Hill House, stop. Don't watch that. Stop watching the video and come back once you're finished, or stay for the book review and then go off, watch the series, and then come back and see if you agree with me. Because as much as I love that show or that series, I have a big problem with the ending, but we'll get to that here in just a second. But first, let's talk Shirley Jackson's classic novel. Now, the book was first published in 1959, and like I said, many people, including Stephen King himself, think of this as one of the best kind of examples of haunted house stories out there. Now, in Jackson's story, Hill House is being investigated by a paranormal researcher by the name of Dr. John Montague. And Montague is basically rented out Hill House, which has this kind of sordid history of suicide and dark things happening. He's rented it out so he can investigate and see if he can document actual paranormal activity. And to this end, what he does is he sends letters out to a variety of folks that he's identified as possibly being sympathetic to his research. And of all the letters he sends out, kind of cold calling, if you will, folks to help him do this research, only two people actually respond. Two young ladies, one named Eleanor and one named Theodora. And they converge at Hill House, meet each other, as well as a young man named Luke, who is actually the heir who's supposed to inherit Hill House. He kind of wants to know what the story is behind, if there's any truth to the rumors of what's happened at Hill House over the previous decades, if there's something in fact supernatural. And so Dr. Montague brings these folks together to help him, again, document any kind of supernatural activity that's going on there. The characters will then, over the course of, it's not a particularly long book, less than 300 pages, you have mainly through the eyes of Eleanor, you see the individuals experience these supernatural events. Now, the way Jackson presents Hill House, I mentioned this in the video I did about movie adaptations, but I just simply love the way Shirley Jackson presents Hill House. She kind of alludes back through her character of Montague, alludes back to biblical times, where how in the Old Testament there's these provisions made for houses that get leprosy, and so he talks about how buildings can become sick, right? And he also talks about how in architecture there are these proper angles that when you're looking at a house that are pleasing to the eye, that architects strive to achieve. So these angles and measurements, but that Hill House, when it was designed, it was somehow there's something off about everything about it. All the angles, all the perspective you get when you look at the house, there's something wrong with it. And I just think the way she describes Hill House as just being somehow unnatural without actually making it like overtly evil, like intelligent evil, is just fascinating. And she does it, and it sets this setting within the story. I think that as you go through it, you've kind of always got that lurking in the background, which is what makes, I think, a good ghost story, a good haunted house story, because no matter what the actual event's going on, it's kind of set up in this kind of creepy context. So you have Eleanor, Theodora, and Luke, and Dr. Montague, who are then joined by his wife and another gentleman who helps research. I forget his name. And by the end of it, it has you questioning, the sanity of some of the characters, as well as the supernatural events that's happening within the story. But again, no spoilers here. I found it very satisfying. I know I've seen some book reviewers say that they were a little, they really couldn't get into it because they felt it was just too slow of a burn. I did not find that at all. I found that Shirley Jackson's mood setting and reveals were quite satisfying because, as I've said many times on these, I feel like the best horror reserves some mystery. And the ending of the story, I think, it could leave you scratching your head, but I found it, and it did so in a good way. And again, no spoilers until we get to Mike Flanagan's adaptation. But overall, I found the story and the characters really neat. I think it is one of the best haunted house stories, and I really love a good haunted house story, but it's one of the best haunted house stories out there. That's Shirley Jackson's novel. Let's transition over to Mike Flanagan's adaptation. Is it a good adaptation of Shirley Jackson's work? And I mentioned this in the video about movie adaptations, and the answer clearly is no. It is not a good adaptation at all, and it's not meant to be. Flanagan clearly has just taken the seeds of Shirley's work, Shirley Jackson's work, and turned it into his own thing. Now, all in all, that's fine because it turns out that Flanagan's vision and his story are compelling in their own right and really good. But as far as adaptations go, if you were going to watch that and then do a book review, try to pass it off as a book review for Shirley Jackson's work, you'd be destroyed because there's, except for some shared names and Hill House, the name of the mansion, there's almost no similarities to it. In fact, I would argue that the entire vibe and what you might call the moral of the story are quite at odds with each other. So let's talk the series real quick. The series is just really just intriguingly crafted, right? It starts you off in the past with a traumatic event that happens in Hill House with the family running for their lives, and the mother is left behind for whatever reason. I don't think it's a spoiler. That's established very quickly in the very beginning of the first few minutes, and you never really understand what happened to the mother, right? And then it transitions over to a modern setting where the kids of this family, the Crane family, are all grown up. They're estranged from their father, and they are basically living their lives the best they can with whatever the traumatic events that happened in the past. Turns out these traumatic events are related to ghostly activity in Hill House, and the ghosts are just horrifying. They really are. There's the introduction of something called the bent neck lady, just all sorts of horrifying of these horrifying apparitions that torment the family who have arrived to basically repair, renovate, and then sell the house so then this happy family can go and build their own house somewhere else. But it never happens. Now remember, there are spoilers. I'm going to start hitting into a couple of them right now. But the mother winds up dying and winds up being one of the forces that are haunting the house and trying to kill, and in some case successfully does kill the rest of her family. The beginning scene of the series when they're fleeing the house where he says it's not your mother, it really is creepy. But the story sets up this idea that the family, once they're in there, it wants to consume them. There's a line in the story, I forget what episode, I think it's one of the last episodes, where the father, and this just kind of burned into my bread, says, "We're like an unfinished meal to that house. The house wants them dead." And the appearance throughout the series of the mother, who is clearly trying to kill her family, it creates this horrifying tension and a real villain in the story. But this is where things fall apart for me, or that's not the part that falls apart. What falls apart to me, Flanagan kind of explains in an interview that I read with him. You see, he's done a number, obviously, of horror movies. He's considered one of the modern masters of horror television and movies, motion pictures. And apparently, see, I never saw his first movie called, I think it was Oculus. And as he was making Hill House, he, I guess, had this change of heart. He realized that he was on the path to making something that was really dark and ended on a dark note. Shirley Jackson's book ends on a dark note. He didn't want to do that. And so he changed the ending. Not he wasn't sticking with Shirley Jackson's ending, but I guess he was sticking kind of with the tone. And he decided at the last minute he didn't want to do that. And so towards the end, spoilers, if you haven't watched this, you know, please realize I'm about to ruin it for you. That by the end of the story, there's kind of a reunion where the father takes his own life so his spirit could be with his wife, and she's already murdered one of her kids, and so she's got her daughter, one of her daughters, and her husband with her, and it kind of creates this happy little reunion at the end, and they kind of let go of the others so they can live their lives, which I found was a complete cop out. I mean, we had a whole series. This is my problem with this, and I would love to hear y'all's opinion. The whole series was clear that there were these evil spirits that were tracking down this family and trying to kill them. Not even related to the mother, right? These are things that were haunting them before she even dies. And so we have these clearly evil forces that are trying to draw them in and create and kill them in one way or another, drive them to insanity and kill them. But it gets resolved at the end because dad decides he's going to join the mother and make her feel better. So somehow she gets, oh, by the way, she also ends up killing their neighbor's kid too, who's also stuck in the house. So here we finally have, at the end of the story, we have this resolution where you had this almost like a warm moment where they're talking about family and letting go of the past and things like that. Where you're like, no, wait a second. They were murdering people. They were killing people. They were haunting and terrifying people. And you don't get off that easy. But and this is kind of all encapsulated with the narration at the end, and this kind of just I wasn't done with it because I enjoyed the whole series, but the ending I felt was like a little bit like insult to injury. So I'm going to read to you the last sentence of Shirley Jackson's novel, and this is what it says. If you recall, I think it's just one of the coolest, chilling last sentences in a horror novel I've read. Within, its walls continued upright, bricks met neatly, floors were firm, and doors were sensibly shut. Silence lay heavily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there walked alone. Now I'm going to play you a quick snippet of the last words of Mike Flanagan's, and tell me if you can notice the difference.
And those who walk there walk together.
Did you catch that? He says, whoever walked there walked together. Aw, he turned it into such a nice little warm kind of ending. But you can't have that for two reasons. Number one is the mom was trying her damnedest to kill her family and succeeded in partially in a very gruesome manner. But number two, because Hill House was already haunted by these horrifying ghosts, apparitions, and they're not getting the happy ending that the Crane family seems to be getting here. So are they now consigned to Hill House in this happy little room while the rest of them are lurking out there and, tormented by whatever brought them there? It doesn't make any sense. So Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Hill House, a fantastic story, but that ending, the only way it's satisfying is if you're allowing yourself to just, you want that happy ending as well, and you don't think too far outside of the bubble that Mike Flanagan has created for the Crane family. So that's the comparison. I think they're both just fantastic works in their own right. Flanagan's adaptation wasn't meant to be a faithful adaptation, and I think he does. I mean, just the scares and the storytelling are fantastic until that very end nugget that I know I'm being kind of picky about. I'd love to know what you think. If anyone shares my grievance, or if you think I missed something, it's very possible I did. So drop a comment in if you would, and let me know what you thought of both the book and the adaptation. And we may in the future talk about his adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's works, which were obviously not meant to be faithful adaptations, but were inspired by, but I still think were extraordinarily clever. So that's it, guys. Let me know what you think, and let me know what you're reading for spooky season. Please drop that comment in there, and we will talk again here next week. Thanks, guys.